What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. When are the Switch 2 pre-orders going live in the US and Canada? It's a question that's been asked over and over and over again since they were delayed last week. Well, now we may finally have an indication as to that date, and it's actually coming from a very reliable source, especially on the retail side, and we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about just a massive leak, a remake that we've been talking about for quite a while and even thought it could be shadow dropped here in April. Well, now images just happened to leak out from the developer's website, and it looks like we are on track to see that big Elder Scrolls remake next week. We'll take a look at some of that, and we're also be talking about Game Pass as more and more titles going in, with some now being announced to close out April and go into May, and it just shows how strong of a 2025 Microsoft is setting up, and we'll go over all of that here today. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps it a ton, and if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below, and of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Baldur's Gate 3, as it looks like they have their final patch that is live today, and we can see this posted up. This is over on Insider Gaming, giving us some of the highlights, which includes crossplay, photo mode, 12 new subclasses, modding toolkit update, split screen for the Xbox Series S, which that's a pretty big deal considering that was apparently the issue they were running into with that platform and why it wasn't able to get onto the Xbox. That was one of those rare occasions where Microsoft allowed them to kind of break parity, which they have set up for all these different publishers, and it's a big deal to get Baldur's Gate 3 in general, and hey, you know what, if split screen couldn't make it, there you go, but it's really sneaking its way in here right at the end. Also, of course, Steam trading cards, and I mean, it's a massive feature list. I think the patch notes are like 40-something pages long, so they also closed out with kind of a farewell to fans and a big thank you, and we'll touch on that a little more little later in the show, as one of the member comments actually pointed this out when it comes to the value of Baldur's Gate 3, as we're seeing pricing situations all across the board when it comes to the more controversial side of gaming. But yes, Baldur's Gate 3, that final update is now available. Also, we had a bit of an update on that PlayStation Portable report that came out, which the question was, can it actually play PlayStation 5 games, because the concern is it wouldn't be able to. Well, we can see this posted up. This is over on the Reddit Gaming Leaks and Rumors page. And it's from Kepler, who says it can definitely run PS5 games, just not at the same resolution or FPS, mainly due to lower memory bandwidth, which, I mean, that's not shocking. If you look at the memory bandwidth that we have, say, for the Switch 2, while it is much, much higher than the Switch 1, it's still nowhere near what, like, the PS5 has access to. But if, for example, this portable device from Sony would be targeting 1080p, doesn't necessarily need a ton of memory bandwidth compared to if it was targeting 4K or even 8K, right? So we'll say with like the PlayStation 6 or something. They're also estimating somewhere between the Xbox Series S and the PS5, which is about right considering many people are already comparing the Xbox Series S to the Switch 2, and this is a device from Sony that probably won't be out for a few years. So that's about what I was expecting. Remember, it would be targeting 900p to 1080p most likely. Really wouldn't have much need to shoot for 4K on a smaller, we'll say, 7 to 8 inch screen. Oh, and we do have Lunar Remastered Collection that's out later on this week on the 18th, and reviews did go live, which unfortunately not a ton of reviews went up. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at OpenCritic, and what that does is just sort of consolidate all the different systems together, so we have a better idea as to where something like this is sitting, which we can see right now at an 81 for the top critic average, actually 88% critics recommend, and that's on 34 critic reviews across all the different platforms out on, which is Switch, PC, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series, and Xbox One. So definitely casting a wide net there, which is great, because this is the situation for me, which I really didn't get to experience Lunar at all back in the day, and I was sort of eyeing up this remastered collection to experience it for the first time. So I'll definitely be picking it up. I think I'm gonna pick it up actually on the PlayStation 5, and then maybe get it physically on the Switch, so we'll see. But either way, I will pick this up and check it out and see what I think of Lunar now in 2025. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Switch 2 pre-orders, which has been a very frustrating experience, I'm sure, for many people out there in the US and in Canada, especially since you kind of see a lot of people around the world right now in other regions pre-ordering, getting things set up on their end for the Switch 2, and for the most part, it's been a pretty smooth experience. Like, I haven't seen many out there who are like, oh, I couldn't couldn't get the Switch 2. It's just that it was sold out. Now it's up on eBay for, double or triple the amount. I do think that's still going to happen, especially if we see US and Canada, those pre-orders completely sell through and everyone's just kind of scrambling, looking to find one at that point. But at least for now, everyone's just kind of hanging out in the US and in Canada, waiting for the announcement. And, well, we may actually have at least one date to look forward to, potentially two. But the good news is you'll have a bit of a heads up here, so let's take a look. This is coming to us from D-Labs, or Bill, which you can see here. And they say, from what I can see through some Canadian retailers, Nintendo Switch 2 console and bundle pre-orders should start from April 23rd, 2025. Date subject to change, can't confirm if it's the same for the US. They say it'll keep us updated if it changes, which will actually go to an updated tweet that they put out since then. But if they're reading this for like Canadian retailers, we know that Canada was delayed due to the US. So it seems like they are trying to have both of these pre-orders releases coincide with each other, and kind of makes sense. Some, I guess that I mentioned, some were looking to see if they could figure out ways to pre-order it from Canada or other things there. So I guess in that sense, because of proximity, sure, I get it. You want to make sure it's all there in line, all going up at once. Well, we can see this posted up a few hours later from Bill, who says, through some US retailers, I found conflicting data for pre-order start date of Nintendo Switch 2 hardware. For Switch 2 consoles, April 21st or April 30th, depending on retailer. And for accessories like Switch 2 Pro controller, April 30th. Okay. So what's going on here with this April 30th pre-order date? Because this is technically not a new thing, and I understand Bill's putting it out there just to cover all bases, like, hey, it could be April 30th. I actually think now, looking at that, April 30th would be less likely, because word started to go around that Target had April 30th as kind of a placeholder date, and since then, it seems yesterday, those were being removed from Target. So now I'm looking at April 21st as the first potential day for pre-orders to go live, and then look towards April 23rd otherwise. I still think it's all going to go live at the same time between Canada and the US, and some have wondered, how will Nintendo handle this in the sense of where they're going to make the announcement? Well, you'll know either way if you're watching Newswave, because I will tell you. I'll put that in this, it'll be a big story and everything. But in this case, some have wondered if the Mario Kart World Direct would make sense for them to announce it. And in some ways, I can see that, because I mean, most people, probably everyone, is going to be watching that who is interested in getting a Switch 2 to see the launch title. I mean, that's the game that most people are going to pick up and play, especially since many people buy Nintendo products for Nintendo games. It's kind of like, it's like the Breath of the Wild release alongside the Switch 1, in this case, Mario Kart World for the Switch 2. The only thing is, that presentation, the way it's all set up and then translated and localized and stuff for different regions, it's going to have most of the same information in there. So it would be kind of strange if they had that as like a, hey, it's up for pre-order in the US and Canada when you're showing it in like Japan or something. So while I think it's possible they could add it in to say the North American Direct or something, I kind of feel like Nintendo will just announce it separately on its own. Hopefully 48 hours minimum in advance. I still think they're going to do it several days ahead of time, but it is something to keep in mind as we get past that Mario Kart World Direct. I mean, people are going to start getting pretty antsy and looking around all over the place, so keep in mind you could also see some false reports, things just thrown out there to get people hyped up and clicking and stuff, so keep that in mind. I kind of feel like there's going to be a lot of that as well, but these are the dates I'm looking towards now. Bill is usually pretty on about this, and we'll just keep an eye on Nintendo's official accounts for Canada and the US and everything to see when they're ready to announce it. But otherwise, we have that Mario Kart World Direct coming up, and we'll see if Nintendo can at least show everyone why they decided to slap the $80 price tag on it. Next up, let's talk about a massive remake that has leaked out early. And look, we already kind of knew about this. It's been mentioned so many times over. Nate's talked about it, I feel like, multiple times at this point. But even outside of that, like others, Jeff Grubb and more have said, hey, look towards April for that Oblivion remake. And now we've actually kind of seen it, because Virtuous, who is the studio working on this thing, has just had images apparently found on their website, and down to like marketing materials, the whole thing. They even have a comparison shots up there to showcase the new visuals for what should be Unreal Engine 5. Well, we can see this posted up. This is by Eurogamer, who says a remake or remaster of Bethesda's beloved Oblivion has been expected for years and has been the subject of numerous industry whisperings in recent weeks. Eurogamer understands Bethesda's current plan is to shadow drop the game next week on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S, including via Game Pass. In fact, you can see Wario64 had a bunch of images here just kind of showing off the game, some of the comparisons from Oblivion in 2006 versus this Oblivion, what looks like, based on the box art, they're naming it Oblivion Remastered. Although I wonder if it's similar to Metroid Prime Remastered, where many people looked at it and said, okay, that looks like a bit more than a remaster. It's kind of that halfway point, maybe. So the good news here, I guess, for Oblivion diehards is it will be more one-to-one in a sense, but some were kind of off-put by the visuals that were at least shown in, again, were like 2 comparison shots, really, and they're not the complete uncompressed images that are out there because, you know, they're dropping, I'm sure, 4K images and stuff after the game gets announced, and apparently shadow dropped, which to me, that's the big thing. I get it. Some are looking at this going, whoa, that looks kind of muted. It's sort of, the funny thing about Oblivion is a lot of people look at that Xbox 360 generation, rightfully so, as the brown, gray, and like green era where everything was kind of muted. And to be fair, that did work to cover up some of the graphical deficiencies when it came to the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and then we got to like the PS4 and the Xbox One. All of a sudden, many of these companies rediscovered a lot of the brighter, more vivid colors, sure. But for Oblivion, it started off the generation looking super bright and vivid and saturated, and it has that distinct look, whereas when you jump over to what looks like a couple of screenshots of the remastered, it's kind of dulled and muted a bit and goes back to the Xbox 360 days, just not necessarily the ones that people are super excited to see in action here. I still need to see the game in front of me in person before I can start judging it too harshly, as there should be time of day and stuff, and they could have captured it differently there. So we'll see when it comes to that. And also, maybe they have like classic filters and stuff. The thing with remasters is you never know. They can have these little nostalgic flares in there when it comes to the options menu to sort of fine-tune the experience just how you want. Here's the thing, though. We did have a report from MP First back in January. If you remember, went down like the list of features that should be reworked, for example. That does include the HUD, which is meant to be easier to understand for new players, stamina, so it's going to be less frustrating for players to be knocked down less when it's depleted. Hit reactions, blocking, sneaking, archery. Like, we're talking all this stuff sort of being refined when it comes to at this point, decades of advancement that we've seen when it comes to gameplay in general. That's the biggest thing of Oblivion. I think many of us remember it very, very fondly. Maybe we haven't played it in a while, and if you do, you're going to go, oh, okay, yeah, this game needs some help, which it seems like Virtuous is coming in here with Bethesda to make that happen, and I'm very excited. Here's the thing. We're expecting it next week, like shadow dropping. In fact, this was funny. We can see this. This was posted up by Synth, who mentions that Xbox support staff seems to be saying April 21st, which, look, okay, so the Xbox support staff doesn't necessarily mean they always know exactly when it's getting announced or if it's actually a thing, or this seems awfully specific for them to fire back with Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster set to release on April 21st. Wouldn't shock me if it was just something that was updated in the system behind the scenes to prepare for that shadow drop and somebody decided to just ask them about it. So I'm just looking at next week as that being a release, shadow drop, big deal there, really cool. But also the same week as Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, and that was already on my radar, so things are filling up quick when it comes to Game Pass, which, speaking of that, let's actually take a look at some of the games heading to the service, which is our last bit of news, and we can head over here. This is posted up on Xbox Wire, where they have all of the announcements for the end of April going into May with games for Game Pass. And we'll start at the top as Grand Theft Auto 5 Cloud Console and PC is available here with even Game Pass Standard. So good news, it is returning to Game Pass. It's been in the service before. I guess Rockstar just loves to renegotiate with Sony and Microsoft pretty consistently, actually. Moving to April 16th today, we have Neon White on console, SpongeBob SquarePants, that's the Patrick Star game, Cloud Console and PC. It's also mentioned for Game Pass Standard, so there you go. April 17th, we have Crime Scene Cleaner, cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. We have Tempopo, that's cloud, console, and PC. That's a day one release. Then, of course, we'll move up to April 24th. Claire Obscure Expedition 33, cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. I do want to pause for a second, move back a couple of days. We'll throw Oblivion Remastered in here, so think about that again. I mean, you're going from mid-April to the end, and you have Oblivion Remastered and Claire Obscure there. Two big releases to close out the month. That's pretty awesome. And then from there, Towerborn game preview, cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S on April 29th. Far Cry 4, cloud, console, and PC on April 30th. May 1st, so we're going a little bit into next month here. Anno 1800, cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. And this is interesting. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 on May 1st, cloud, console, and PC. I don't really know what's going on with these Call of Duty releases. They just seem so, I don't know, random, sporadic. I know a lot of us are thinking just throw all of them in there at once. I get the idea of maybe dividing them up somewhat, but I feel like it'd be better just to have a new Call of Duty game go in every single month at this point because there's so many. It would take a while to run through them all, but either way, hey, Modern Warfare 2, the newer one, by the way, not the one from 2009, heading in May 1st. Then we have Dredge, cloud, PC, Xbox Series X and S on May 6th. Now, they also show some of the games that are leaving April 30th. We have Have a Nice Death, Kona 2 Broom, Sniper Elite 5, The Last Case of Benedict Fox, Thirsty Suitors, and The Rewinder. Nothing too crazy here, but I did want to point that out in case maybe you're playing any of these games. They will be leaving April 30th, so you want to either wrap those games up unless you plan to buy them, or even start them now and try to rush through them. But as I mentioned, Microsoft is rolling in 2025. This is a year where if you have Game Pass, it probably feels worth it right now. I mean, think about this. We just going into next week, Oblivion's going to be a very well, not random anymore, but like a shadow drop that goes into the service. If we didn't hear a thing about that through leaks and stuff, consider how shocking that would have been to have that announcement. It's still awesome, and I still can't wait to see it fully in action there natively on nice OLED display and see what Virtuous was able to do. But then days later, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which is a game that I've been looking forward to ever since we saw it last year. So Game Pass, guys, rolling along. Still looking forward to Doom and Tony Hawk and many more, I'm sure, that we're going to see announced here at the Xbox Game Showcase over the summer. So, hey, so far so good for Microsoft in 2025. And before we go to the members comment and comment of the day, we can take a look at the poll that I posted up, where I asked, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster seems on track for a release next week. Are you picking it up? 53% just say they're not interested, but 28% say they're buying it on PS5, Xbox, or PC, so any of those three there, which I feel like it's going to be very, very big on PC. Curious about the modding scene to see how all of that works exactly. If that's even planned at this point by Bethesda, we'll see. And then 19% say yes, I'm downloading it on Game Pass. And I mean, yeah, that's, again, the service is there. The value is there. Microsoft's offering it up. If you have Game Pass, you gotta take advantage of all of this, because this is one of the times where we're finally there with Microsoft, where they're hitting that quota of one big game per quarter. They're kind of turning in more than that now, I feel like. And it does make you once again wonder, as we're seeing prices go up everywhere. I've thought about that in the back of my mind. It's like, wow, Microsoft really stuffing a lot of stuff in there, whereas apparently Avowed had to be delayed out of the fourth quarter holiday period of last year because there was too much stuff. Now there's stuff everywhere. They're shadow dropping Oblivion. They could have used that as a marketing push for several months, maybe into July or August or something. No, it's just randomly going to come out next week into Game Pass, same week as Claire Obscure. Does make me wonder about that price for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So keep that in the back of your mind. But hey, for now, if you got Game Pass, take advantage of a lot of the value that Microsoft's really stuffing in there right now. And we'll finish up with two different comments of the day. One is coming from the members post. So what I do is I just drop a message there on the members board. And basically, if you're a member of the channel, you can drop a comment in there and I'll pick one out from there, as well as just the overall comment of the day from just the public comment section below this video. Just another fun perk for any of the supporters out there for the channel who are members. And let's take a look here. This was posted up by its Ornal. It says, this is cool. I think mentioning the massive Baldur's Gate 3 patch that's coming out for free in the midst of all these pricing debates would be a bit topical. Okay, so I'll agree with this because Larian did an awesome job for Baldur's Gate 3 ahead of its release. They worked with the community through early access and got that game to where it was like, I mean, almost perfect. People really enjoyed that game, one game of the year, the whole thing. But they didn't just stop right there. They kept going, right? This was what, patch 8, and it's massive. So they just continued to add content to the game, like above and beyond what expectations were. And think about the title itself on release is what, hundreds of hours of gameplay there, and they just kept adding. And there is something to that when it comes to like the goodwill and almost the equity with gamers. Because now going forward, if you see Larian's name pop up before release, you're probably gonna sit up straight, oh, okay, let me see what this is. And if it looks really good, you're gonna be more, I think, more likely to buy in day one full price because you know how they operate here with Baldur's Gate 3. You're going to assume that'll continue on with their next project. So it won't be one that maybe you wait to get on sale. And I think there is something very valuable around that for even like the company and the corporation side. If you treat gamers well and you even deliver more than they were expecting, they'll follow you to the next project, right? I mean, look at what's happening right now with FromSoft. Every time that logo pops up, it's gotten to the point where we were playing Ninja Blade back in the day. No one cared about FromSoft, but now you see FromSoft's logo pop up and it's like, oh, whoa, what is this? And they show you something that looks like a FromSoft game, but you go, hey, I'm there day one, I'm checking it out. It's that equity that gets built up over multiple really good releases that doesn't necessarily try to get one over on the gamer. And I think Larian has done that really, really well here with Baldur's Gate 3 and the current talk around pricing for games and subscription services, nickel and diming, really continues to emphasize what they did with Baldur's Gate 3. And now we'll go over to the comment of the day, as you can see here. This was posted up by the Shadow Director, who says, I could see people grumbling that the handheld will hold back the console SKU, but in the current environment, is this really a big issue? Looking at the state of prices right now, maybe the industry will need to slow down in terms of technological advancement to let cost even out, like Steven out though, across both hardware and soft reproduction. I hope that makes sense. So I get what you're saying here. It's the idea that we keep pushing like the visual boundaries and the technological side of things. And with that comes a cost, not only a human cost, because well, you need to have developers to make it happen. And we're seeing more and more of them get burned out or laid off and leaving the industry, but also just money-wise. Like it costs more and more money to make this a reality. Whereas, yes, I get what you're saying, if you had a handheld and it limited some of the stuff you were going to be doing, it would kind of rein things in a bit, and we could get the costs under control because the expectations might come down slightly. That's the thing that's really tough. How do you control gamer expectations around the industry and around the visual side of things? I think a lot of that, to me, comes down more so to the art style. I would prefer to have a really cool looking game that looks different and interesting that runs at 60 frames because it's not as fidelity driven and trying to make it look as realistic as possible to where you see the pores on someone's skin. That I think is something that is more timeless as well. Wind Waker still looks incredible, but it's not a realistic looking game. And those are the ones that have always stood out to me. And I would like the industry to kind of lean a bit more into that aspect as opposed to trying to attain photorealism to where people hit the uncanny valley and it just starts freaking everyone out. So I get what you're saying. I like that idea, and I don't think having a handheld there that would hold things back, potentially hold things back, would necessarily be a problem in the long run. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card, or maybe you want to hear about how the Switch 2 cartridge is different than the Switch 1 cartridge, and actually apparently how Nintendo is losing some of their identity. I went over all of that in a video yesterday, and I'll leave it right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.